language and discussion of drug use.
The mid-90s had seen a spellbound UK captivated by a new music scene, Britpop.
It was just a very exciting time to be young and British.
I guess I'm all right, guess I'm all right.
It's just one big sort of...
As a relentless rise of British guitar bands
It was really fun.
took over the charts.
We're the biggest band in the world because we were selling the most records and playing to the most people.
This time, 1996.
Name drop.
The year Britpop became inescapable.
Britpop was at its height. Feels like a perfect storm that these cultural forces all aligned.
On our TVs,
This is ocean, colour, sea.
in the tabloids,
It's not really a habitat which I'm really that comfortable in, you know.
and on the terraces.
It is coming home.
With an increasingly laddish swagger,
Since when did working class necessarily mean being a sexist pig?
and the alpha males of Oasis dominant.
Then it was Nebworth.
It was the biggest event I'd ever been to, far bigger than Glastonbury.
But as new acts joined the party from all across the UK,
And that's when we started taking off.
And it blew up. It was massive.
a backlash was brewing.
Some music journalists wanted us gone.
This is the story of the year when Britpop culture and attitude took over Britain.
When you've got to that point, where do you go beyond that?
As 1996 began, Britain's biggest band were riding high, with a song that set the tone for a year of Oasis dominance.
It's about this girl who was a bit upset that she didn't have a job and all the rest of it. So I wrote this song for her. And she was dead happy then. And I got a shag out of it.
I remember putting on Wonderwall and within about 8 seconds going, oh God, it's going to sell 10 million copies, which I was wrong. It sold 23 million copies, but it was one of these moments. It was just amazing, you know.
Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. By now, you should have somehow realized what you gotta do.
The delivery of Liam Gallagher on that song is extraordinary because he's singing a ballad, but it's the force of his voice, and it's not how you would normally imagine a ballad would be dealt with.
Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. I'm sure you've heard it all before, but you never really had it down.
And it's what gives it its energy.
If that anybody feels the way I do about you now.
It's a track that sent Blur's bass player, Alex James, running for cover.
Remember, I'd been at Alex's converted cheese warehouse in Covent Garden, and he said, we heard Wonderwall for the first time. He heard it and said, that's us out of the frame for a few years, isn't it? Which is really, really savvy, and he was right. Wonderwall's a great record. Completely meaningless.
No one even knows what a Wonderwall is, right? It's from some 60s obscure, film that George Harrison wrote the soundtrack for.
Noel's reluctance to overthink his work was legendary, which presented a challenge to the director of the Wonderwall video, Nigel Dick.
People call him Nigel, we just called him Dick.
Today was gonna be the day, but they'll never throw it back to you.
The brief that I was given, which came from Noel, is I want the video to be black and white with colour in it. End of story.
I don't particularly like making videos. My concept for a video would just be to film us in a gig playing the song live.
They hate being directed. You can tell them where to stand, and that's the end of it.
Liam, you know, the lead singer of the biggest band of the 90s, of the era, and he's just sitting in a chair, and he still looks so cool.
I said maybe you're gonna be the one that saves me. And after all,
The funny thing about Wonderwall is that when they're sitting in those 5 chairs, I gave One of them, the guitar, somebody in newspaper. I told them to do nothing, and they just acted their hearts out. They changed stuff around, they changed chairs. It was fantastic. When something like that happens, you're quietly going, yes!
Helped by its iconic video, Wonderwall hit #2 in the UK charts and became a multi-platinum seller worldwide. And the giants of Britpop were now so popular, even comedy cover versions could become hits.
Well, Wonderwall is a great song, but I've got a memory of it as an easy listening song.
Hello, my name's Mike Flowers, and my favourite music for serenading is the music of nature, the sound of wind in the trees, and the murmuring of a stream.
Mike Flowers released his toe-tapping take on Wonderwall while the Oasis single was still in the charts.
Noel Gallagher was probably turning in his grave, I expect.
I don't believe that anybody feels the way I do about you.
But far from feeling frustrated, Noel would give his blessing, in typical Gallagher fashion.
Me and Noel went out at Christmas on the Lash, and Mike Flowers was playing at the Astoria. And it's like, man, this is too good to miss. Me and Noel stood about 10 feet away from him, and Mike Flowers somehow looked down and caught Noel's eye, and Noel just went back at him like that. He loved it.
And after all, you're my Wonderwall.
While Noel had written the song, there was one other key figure behind the success of Mike Flowers, as well as a host of more serious Britpop bands. And that was Radio 1 DJ and Britpop's hitmaker-in-chief, Chris Evans.
For us, he personified everything that we were trying to say about Radio 1. He was entertaining, funny, edgy, enjoying football, enjoying the music, enjoying a party. The breakfast show became a shop window for the Britpop band. For a time, it was a perfect storm because he also went on to present TFI Friday.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to TFI Friday.
Launched in February '96, TFI Friday would become Britpop's unofficial TV show, featuring an unpredictable and edgy mix of music and interviews.
Chris Evans was majorly influential, and the fact it was live, it was done totally live, was an incredible thing.
The show summed up an irreverent and increasingly blokey spirit prevalent at the time.
Who are you going to be for us?
I'm going to be Johnny Rotten.
Johnny Rotten!
I got banned from Channel 4 for I got a lifetime ban. And we was playing live, and I'd missed the cue to come in and start the song. So in my head, I think, fuck. But it's in my head thinking this, but it's coming out my mouth going, So, you know, anyway, yeah, so he got me a big ban off Channel 4, that did, yeah.
My card's upside down, but that's the least of my worries at the moment.
TFI Friday became must-see TV for millions, supercharging the careers of countless bands. And none more than the year's second biggest selling Britpop act after Oasis, Ocean Colour Scene, whose track, the Riverboat Song, was used as the show's walk-on music.
Chris Evans acted as a benefactor for Ocean Colour Scene, and without his mark there, they wouldn't have made it. I was living with Simon and Steve from Ocean Colour Scene at this period. It was brilliant because every time we watched TFI, I'd be sitting with Simon on the sofa and he'd be rubbing his hands going, that's another 70 quid for my weekly stash of weed.
The Riverboat Song became an essential Britpop anthem and kick-started a remarkable turnaround for a band who'd been dropped by their record label and found themselves unemployed in the early 90s.
It's devastating when you get signed and you make an album and suddenly the rug's pulled away from underneath you. Most bands give up, to be honest, and just get sort of proper jobs. They had the promise of a small deal in Japan, and that was as far as it went.
I was on the dole at the time. I lived for 3 years with a hole in the window that the landlord would never mend.
God, cheer up, mate.
So I was holding out for a better day, and that better day is now here, you see.
Yes.
Better days dawned when their reputation as a powerful live act earned slots supporting Britpop royalty.
Paul Weller championed the band, and so did Noel, and I think that really, really helped.
Never saw it as the start. It's more a change of heart. Rapping on the windows, whistling down the chimney pot. Blowing up the dust in the room where I forgot.
From the brink of obscurity, Ocean Colour Scene were offered a deal with MCA Records and finally made a second album, Moseley Shoals.
I remember when I finished the album, I had a CD, and Noel just grabbed it out of my hand. And that was the last we saw of it.
After lead single The Riverboat Song got its Chris Evans boost, the album soared to number 2 and spawned 3 more hits, including the group's biggest, The Day We Caught the Train. Moseley Shoals would ultimately spend 92 weeks on the album chart, selling just shy of 1 million copies.
Suddenly, in a blink of an eye, they were everywhere, on the radio, on the television, on front covers. It was so, so exciting.
And it wasn't just Ocean Colour Scene making a splash. As one charismatic figure would cause a sensation by publicly challenging the musical old guard.
Spends the night in the cells.
Taking Britpop onto the front pages.
Let's face it, for pop groups, a bit of controversy is quite nice.
You know the story, it's in the papers, that's what's going on.
By 1996, every move made by Britpop's biggest stars was massive news.
Press in the 90s was nasty.
They had scumbag journalists rifling through their bins to find dirt on them.
If they don't get the story, they just make it up anyway.
You believe everything you read in the British press. You don't believe in actually stab unborn babies before they're born, you know what I mean, over here.
And it wasn't just the swaggering Gallaghers generating headlines. As the era's most feted lyricist, Jarvis Cocker, had triggered tabloid outrage with Pulp's 1995 single about rave culture. Sorted for ease and whiz.
Sorted kind of tells the whole story of how you go there, take drugs, everyone's your best friend, and then it comes to the end and drugs have worn off and you can't get a lift home.
Jarvis, you know, he's got his finger on the pulse. He doesn't want to shy away from sort of talking about subjects that interest him.
Oh, is this the way they say the future's meant to feel? Or just 20,000 people standing in a field?
But it was more than just the song's subject matter that had drawn a storm of condemnation from the tabloids.
But that's okay, 'cause we're all sorted out for reason with.
Apart from the title, Sorted for Ease and Whiz, the record sleeve came with a design to be able to fold it up like a rap of speed.
The sleeve was with an image of an origami wrap that often drugs came in.
The Mirror got hold of this. The headline was, "Ban this sick stunt."
You can see why the press would make it more of a controversy than even the title would have warranted.
Well, I never really buy papers anyway. I find them too depressing.
Let's face it, for pop groups, a bit of controversy is quite nice.
But that's okay, 'cause we're all sorted out for reason with.
It didn't harm the singles chances. I mean, it went in the charts at #2, just as Common People had.
By the time of the 1996 Brit Awards, Pulp, alongside Blur and Oasis, were big news.
In recent years, the Brit Awards have been criticised for pandering to yesterday's pop legends. This year was to be different. Homage paid to a younger generation.
The Chris Evans-hosted Jamboree saw Britpop dominate, as Oasis walked away with Best British Group, Album of the Year for What's the Story Morning Glory, and Best Video for Wonderwall. But the headlines the next morning will be dominated by Jarvis Cocker.
Either that day or the day before, Jarvis had us already saying, "You wouldn't believe it, Michael Jackson's got his own toilet."
There was a portaloo for the sole use of Mr. Michael Jackson. There's a big sign on it, so he wanted to kind of bang on doors and, "Are you in there, Michael?"
When Jackson presented his latest single, Earth Song, posing as a Christ-like figure surrounded by children, Jarvis had had enough.
And we'd seen Mr. Jackson doing his thing, and we were just kind of thinking, what overblown rubbish is this?
We were sat quite near the stage on this big table, and Jarvis said, "Oh, this is really bad. I think we should do something about it."
I think it was Canada egging Jarvis, "I bet you daren't do anything about it. You won't do anything about it."
And then it happened.
Just visible in this clip, the highlighted figure of Jarvis takes to the stage mid-Jackson performance.
We were stood on the table, clapping and cheering, thinking this is fantastic.
Jarvis stuck his bum towards the audience and towards the nation. A beautiful gesture, I think, just puncturing that pompous balloon.
Then, of course, obviously the SH-1T does hit the fan big time.
Cameras captured a Jackson dancer come bodyguard chasing Jarvis off the stage, where things got serious.
Actually, we didn't even notice what had gone on until we seen the police turn up. If we was in any fit states, we'd be standing up, let alone going on stage, man. We'd have been there.
Jarvis was arrested.
The whole fallout from it was more of the fact that people started accusing him of knocking kids over. There was an element of assault to it. So, you know, he spends the night in the cells. Did he, didn't he? No, of course he didn't. But the fact that it was Michael Jackson, it just made it such a, you know, huge event.
In the blue anorak, Jarvis Cocker was ushered into Kensington Police Station through Michael Jackson fans, still angry at what they view as an insult to their hero.
It was unfortunate for me on a personal level because it made me, it put me into that kind of tabloid newspaper celebrity bracket, which is not really a habitat which I'm really that comfortable in, you know.
I mean, I hadn't suggested it or anything, but I did feel a bit bad about it.
Willingly or not, Britpop's biggest stars were now known as celebrities as much as musicians. And with none of Blur, Pulp or Oasis releasing a new album in 1996, there might have appeared a danger of Britpop losing its momentum. But the Britpop pioneers had unleashed an insatiable demand, and new bands were emerging from across the UK to meet it.
I'm Tim from Ash, the Northern Irish punk rockers.
Oh yeah, she was taking me over.
Britpop opened up a new market for guitar rock, and Ash walked in there and filled that gap.
In May 1996, Ash's debut album, 1977, went straight into the charts at #1. Impressive going for teenagers who'd grown up far from Britpop's epicentre.
Our ambitions when we got our guitars for Christmas from Santa were like, OK, we're going to start a rock band. But I was only like 13, 14 or something like that. We had kind of big dreams.
Ash brought a youthful energy and innocence into the Britpop mix, blending earworm choruses with guitars turned up to 11. Recording first with Elastica producer Mark Waterman.
They came over on their school holidays. I just thought they were a really good, punky little band. Tim's amazing. It took a while, I remember, just to get him to settle down and not just screech stuff out. But they were so young.
A deal with Infectious Records would follow, and the band's chart-topping first full album was made with Oasis producer Owen Morris.
Owen was a crazy producer. He'd do stuff like take us to a charity shop and just make us all buy dresses and record in dresses, just to have a vibe.
Before the launch of their debut album, Ash would release 4 singles, including Kung Fu, and the one that would become their signature track.
Do you remember the time when you were girl from Mars? I don't know if you knew that. Oh, it's there.
Girl from Mars was something I wrote when I was 16. Our first manager was like, don't put that out straight away.
I still love you, the girl from Mars.
That's going to be a hit, and if you're still at school, you won't be able to promote it.
Sitting in our dreamy days by the water's edge on a crisp summer night.
So yeah, we held it back and put it out like 2 weeks after we left school. And it blew up. It was massive.
Girl from Mars encapsulates the perfect 3-minute pop song. You know, it's like came out of an egg. I know that they're from Northern Ireland, but there is something undertones about it. In that daydreaming, youthful, teenage, fantastic glow of a crush. It's simple, it's punky, it's direct. It's just beautiful.
With songs like Girl from Mars, Ash were injecting fresh teen appeal into Britpop.
Oh, they're quite good looking, aren't they? Tim Wheeler, the lead singer.
Move closer. Set my mind on fire.
Their rapid rise was underlined by Tim Wheeler's experience writing Ash's first top 5 hit, Goldfinger.
I think I wrote a bit of it in my bedroom in Northern Ireland. Next bit of it in a hotel room in Japan. I think the next bit came while I was in the back of a tour bus in America. I finally finished the lyrics in the studio in Wales. I don't think I could ever do anything like that again.
I've never quite understood how they came up with these unbelievably Moorish choruses.
Ash had won over a Britpop crowd, although their Northern Irish roots meant treading carefully when it came to the Britpop tag.
There's some bits of a Britpop thing I could never get behind. We could never wave a Union Jack flag. If it got too nationalistic, that would completely divide our fans at home.
The success of Ash confirmed Britpop was now a truly UK-wide phenomenon. But as ever more bands joined the party, one would grow increasingly dominant, as the era-defining strut of the Gallaghers hit the top spot once again.
It's sort of Beatlesy, as they all tend to be.
Bringing a wave of like-minded bands in their slipstream.
And I was like, brilliant, you know, do you want a gig?
I could have stayed at home and gone to bed. I could have gone to see a film instead.
While the guitar groups of Britpop were sweeping the nation in 1996, the decade's biggest boy band, Take That, announced that for them, it was all over.
That's all, folks.
The band's record company has set up a special phone line to counsel distraught fans.
But for another, more rough and ready gang of fellow Mancunians, the year just kept getting better. As Oasis released the 4th single from their multi-platinum album, What's the Story? Morning Glory.
It's called Don't Look Back in Anger. It's sort of Beatlesy, but it's the old tend to be.
Great middle eight.
It's a fantastic middle eight.
Slip inside the eye of your mind. Don't you know you might find a better place to play?
Radio 1 DJ Steve Lamacq was keen to declare his approval.
We went to the Mercury Prize
We bumped into Noel Gallagher that night. Rather like a fanboy, I started telling him that this is the one, Don't Look Back in Anger. That's the hit, that's the one. Just gave me a look as if to say...
And of course I wrote it, so it's going to be good.
Thanks.
To me, Don't Look Back in Anger, we've all been in that position. But the thing is, it's not about that, apparently.
Would you call it a love song?
No.
I wouldn't.
Whatever it is about, Don't Look Back in Anger would give Oasis their second #1 hit single, as the band's music became the soundtrack to the lives of millions.
It was never a song that I absolutely loved, but it's become their biggest song. Maybe for all the times it gets used, if there's deaths and things like that. It bonds people and brings it together, you know.
Their immense popularity meant the approval of Oasis could kickstart the careers of other bands too. Even those hailing from Manchester's great regional rival.
People were still saying Liverpool's still about the Beatles and Merseybeat, blah, 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 so probably missing out on the fact that there was a whole new generation of Liverpool music coming through.
And Oasis would be central to reviving the fortunes of one Scouse artist in particular.
They were playing a little place in Liverpool called the Lomax. Flagged me way in. I had my demo. There's Noel sitting there, you know. Put my demo on. We all sat around, you know, having a smoke, and Noel was like, brilliant, you know, do you want a gig? So I was like, yeah, brilliant. We ended up signing from that gig with Oasis to Polydor.
John Power may have gained a Britpop leg up, but it was well deserved, as without his previous band, Britpop as we know it may never have happened.
The next group we've got lined up for you emerged from Liverpool in 1986 and had a massive hit with this classic song, There She Goes. Yes, the year's 1990 and the group is who else but the Lars.
The Lars had a very traditional British pop sound. Britpop before Britpop came along.
I think the Lars are really, really important in the formation, be it subconscious, of a Britpop sound, and the idea that 3-minute pop songs were where it's at, and using 60s obviously as a reference. Everybody listened to the Lars. I go around the house and that's what's going to be on the stereo.
The spirit of the sound and the look, they laid down a massive foundation stone for what became Britpop, definitely.
John Power's apprenticeship was as bass player for the Lars, who were fronted by enigmatic songwriter Lee Mavers.
I had, I would say, the most gifted songwriter of a generation, you know, as a mentor. Lee's songs were so strong, so personal.
A genius. I know that word gets used a lot with him, doesn't it? But it's absolutely true.
But despite critical acclaim, Mavers became disillusioned with the Lars after only one highly influential album.
I think because Lee's never wanted mainstream success, he didn't go after it, he actually shunned it. In that way, it's set them in amber.
In 1991, John Power quit the band for a new start.
As with all things, you know, for me, it just comes to the end of the honeymoon and time to do my own thing, like.
And he knew just what to call his new band.
The name Cast came from the last word on the Lars album, is the change is cast. I mean, every night I'd be standing on stage, you know, the change is cast down, down, down. So what's it all about? Do you really want to know?
Cast's debut single, Fine Time, saw John Power taking up where the Lars had left off.
They've got that real good Merseybeat thing going on. It's almost like he just took off one jacket, the Lars jacket, and put it down, and just picked up another jacket with a slightly different cut, and became cast.
The newly inspired Power began conjuring up songs for his new band out of thin air.
They just, bing! They just went, boop.
And when the group hit the recording studio, he was keen to impress his new label.
John Power was saying, and I've got another one, and he would start singing, and then I've got another one, and he seemed to be there for about an hour and a half. I was just looking at the face of the guy from the A&R guy, and I was thinking, he wants you to stop.
Expect their new album in September, and they'll also be on the road with Oasis, so that's pretty cool. In the meantime, this is a new song.
Second single, Alright, confirmed cast as part of the no-nonsense Oasis school of northern lads with guitars.
I wasn't really surprised that John had success after he stepped out of the Lars. It seems like Scousers are just born to make music. Even in the womb, they're probably learning the chords, you know what I mean? It's uncanny.
Cast's debut album, All Change, would eventually see 4 singles hit the UK charts, with rocker Sandstorm peaking at number 8.
Things are the same. Anyone can see that if I stayed much longer, I'd be tame. We stopped playing games. I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm not taking all the blame.
Before tender ballad Walk Away also went top 10.
Walk Away, that's a goosebump record, isn't it?
Just walk away.
You just think, how could you have so many great songs on one piece of plastic?
Say all you got to say. Now the words just slip away.
When we sing that song, it evokes something, falling in love or leaving the person they love. You know, people have always got a story about it.
But despite Cast enjoying a sudden whirlwind of chart success, Power felt unable to bask in the glory.
All the games they play.
I should have enjoyed the whole thing a lot more. I didn't get all sort of, ooh. It's just one big sort of, didn't take it all in. I was too busy just like, smoking too much weed, like, as well.
Walk away, walk away, walk away. That's what they say, what they say, what they say. Gotta walk away.
The best groups come from the Northwest. Manchester and Liverpool combined probably have created the best music in the world.
Jay had the power to make careers overnight.
Chris Evans went, I love this, I'm going to make it single of the week. You know, so like that basically saved our career, you know, that's when we started taking off.
Space's debut album, Spiders, would go platinum and include their career-defining single.
I remember like hearing Female of the Species the first time and like just that's an incredible song. It felt like it could have been something that was dug up from the 50s or 60s, but then it also felt modern. It's just absolute genius.
Female of Species, it's actually a love song to the Bride of Frankenstein. Frankenstein was in love with the Bride of Frankenstein, but Bride of Frankenstein didn't reciprocate. People thought it was sexist. To me, it was like a feminist song, you know what I mean? It was about the power of women. It hurt me a bit when people were saying that, you know.
Female of the Species fits into that great tradition of, right, the song's kind of about a certain trope. We're going to put some cliches into it, but it's done with a beautiful lyric and with excellent music. It had all the ingredients for a perfect hit song.
The group had found a unique space as Britpop outliers.
I always like to describe us as like all the CDs are on the coffee table, like Oasis would be in the middle because everyone loved them. We were always teetering on the edge about to fall off.
How can heaven hold a place for me when a girl like you was cast
Female of the Species would go on to achieve international fame when featured in the blockbuster spy spoof Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery. After a stroke of luck involving a Hollywood A-lister.
The only reason it got in the film is because Demi Moore was driving in a car and heard it on the radio and phoned Mike Myers up and said, "You've got to listen to this song." Name drop.
Paris culture also on the rise.
It was time for men to get back to being blokes and being unreconstructed.
Britpop would join forces with football, and the results were unforgettable.
To just hear that song when we'd smashed Holland being sung by everybody, that doesn't happen.
It was really beautiful for me, and I loved that, you know.
As the summer of 1996 approached, Britpop was at its peak, riding high in the charts with its stars ever present in the national media.
The Britpop music of the mid-90s was so exciting because for the first time, the best pop group and the best rock group were also the biggest pop groups and rock groups.
Under the banner of Cool Britannia, British art, fashion and film were also booming. And the British Movie of the Year, Trainspotting, with its Britpop-dominated soundtrack, was just the start.
It was a much wider cultural moment than just guitar bands. It was bigger than that.
It was just a period when, if you were ambitious, you got the opportunity to show the world your creativity.
James Brown's contribution to the era was to start the hugely influential magazine Loaded, highlighting a growing mid-90s trend across the nation, and especially within Britpop.
There was a kind of lads culture going on, typified by Loaded magazine.
Loaded magazine had the subtitle, "The magazine for men who should know better."
There was a general sensibility that it was time for men to get back to being blokes and being unreconstructed.
When I came up with the idea of Loaded, it was like a good night out with your mates that mixed music, football, humour, self-deprecation, drinking.
The Loaded style magazines and the excess, I just found it really sleazy.
Some people still think that it was sexist and so on, but it seemed to me to capture a mood of the time, which was personified too by the bands.
And in 1996, two of the Loaded generation's biggest obsessions would combine like never before.
We had various celebrity football games. We had, like, you know, Liam playing and Robbie Williams.
I love football. It's a boss idea. Football and musicians really, really mix.
It's all part of the same cultural thrust, football and Britpop.
June saw England hosting its first major football tournament for 30 years. And remembering the chart-topping success of New Order's World in Motion 6 years earlier, the Football Association were keen to commission a new official England team song, and it simply had to be Britpop.
Euro 96 was the sort of the Britpop football contest.
An approach was made to Ian Brodie of the Lightning Seeds.
My sort of intro to it was having a cassette tape dropped on my desk one day and a sheet of A4 paper with the lyrics. And then I saw this line that said, "Butchers at war." Not sure about that.
The line referred to defender Terry Butcher's well-chronicled willingness to shed blood for the England cause.
Any reference to war when we just come off the back of a major riot in Dublin was completely inappropriate. So I had no compunction but to put the red pen through it. A couple of days later, the phone rang, picked up the phone, and it was given him Badil's manager. He was so angry, I couldn't believe it. I thought, well, that's the end of that.
I don't think that would have caused riots in the streets, that line particularly.
New lyrics came back, and Butcher at War had gone. And it became That Tackle by Moore instead.
Britpop was growing ever more mainstream, with a culture increasingly shaped by a new laddish blend of hedonism, football and banter, typified by Loaded's Euro '96 cover. And for the women of Britpop in particular, this meant unwelcome consequences.
We did a lot of photo shoots around that time that wanted us, you know, basically look a bit pornified. You know, what's wrong with the girls, like, stripping down to their underwear? That kind of thing was seen as acceptable. It was seen like, well, what's the problem?
For bands like Lush, this was all a far cry from the more innocent and less commercial times before Britpop.
Back then, people didn't really have a kind of game plan or some massive career path. It just kind of flowed quite naturally.
Lush were typical of indie guitar music pre-Britpop and were formed in London in the late 80s by childhood friends Mickey Bereni and Emma Anderson.
Well, I met Mickey at school. We've known each other since we were 14. As much as we can, we just try and make it quite clear that we're a band, not two girls and sort of backing musicians or something.
Their 1991 single, For Love, had hit the lower reaches of the top 40, seeing the band sharing a bill with then upcoming acts like Blur and Pulp.
We were headlining unbelievably, right? That made sense at the time.
Lush made great records, rooted in that dreamy guitar world of what became called shoegaze.
But then, Britpop changed everything. And the new pressures on Lush weren't just over photo sessions. Their label wanted hits.
It was a bit like, I'm not being funny, but if you don't play the game, you're going to be dropped. Just thought, right, OK, this is what Britpop wants. It wants hits. It wants, like, in-your-face, kind of upbeat, sassy. And I thought, OK, well, I can do that. Or just, like, ramp up the kind of, you know, the hand claps and the here comes the chorus.
Single Girl, penned by guitarist Emma, was the first of 3 top 30 hits for the band during 1996.
Single girl, single girl, single girl, over and over and over again, because that's what people want. Like, you know, every flag you could wave, but in a funny way. Although I'm ridiculing it, they were hits.
I had an American friend who was of Korean heritage, and I remember being so excited by the idea of this pop star who was herself of part East Asian heritage. And I think we forget what Mickey Bereni meant to so many women and young girls. What's great about that song is it's vicious, but it's also playful. The fact that it came out when it did, when there was huge amounts of sexism going on. I remember reading, you know, The Melody Maker and The Enemy, and every week their gossip columns would be going on about Mickey being drunk and implying that these women were promiscuous. I'm disgusted to think back at what people were writing and how many of them owe women in Britpop a huge apology.
Some were sick of all the swagger.
We don't have that Manchester Oasis attitude because I actually found that quite selfish.
And the media, who had created Britpop, were starting to turn.
Some music journalists wanted us gone.
In 1996 saw Oasis's album What's the Story, Morning Glory take up residence in the upper reaches of the charts. The band's success and attitude confirmed them as Britpop's undisputed top dogs. But some found the unshakable self-confidence of the Gallagher brothers difficult to take.
When I first met Liam, he goes, there's only 2 bands in Manchester. That's us and the Roses. And I'm like, no one's heard of you. Do you know what I mean? But it was that attitude.
Dodgy, they didn't appear to have that same swagger that the other bands had. Maybe it's because they were all a bit stoned.
Hailing originally from small-town Worcestershire, Dodgy came with a Britpop sound but rejected the Britpop attitude of the Gallaghers. Their outlook was a throwback to an earlier era of underdog indie bands.
Dodgy were one of the bands who obviously predate Britpop. They were a good band before Britpop came along. You know, this sort of beat group type of thing with a slightly psychedelic influence as well.
The band's self-deprecating nature was clear from their name, chosen during a London tube journey after eating pizza with a special topping.
Oh, my stomach feels really dodgy. And I was like, me too, I feel really dodgy too. We were coming up on the mushrooms. So we just started laughing and like on the train and talking about Dodgy. What a great name for a band, I said. We could have Dodgy Armani watches and Dodgy this and Dodgy that. And we were like, brilliant.
Like Oasis, Dodgy first hit the top 40 in 1994 with their song Staying Out for the Summer.
I love the imagery of it. It was a bit hippie-ish, the Volkswagen camper van. You knew that these guys had their hearts in the right place. Certainly, the songwriters, musicians, it's spot on.
I'm staying out for the summer, playing games in the rain.
The track recalled a life-defining decision made by the teenage Nigel Clark, who'd been working on a car production line at the time.
See, I work in a factory, I don't want to be late. I got my debts to pay for, we're gonna have to wait.
I'd worked on the shop floor and the track at Rover, building cars on a night shift at 18 years old.
In this British factory, the Land Rover is manufactured.
That wasn't the dream, that was a nightmare. I remember having an epiphany, putting the milk bottles out one morning and going, I don't want this, I can't do this. This was the summertime of my life.
Dodgy's vision of working-class escape was friendlier than the Gallaghers' rock and roll star swagger and came with a keen social conscience too.
I think that's why Staying Out for the Summer resonates with people. It's kind of like a tale of the working class, really. I am a socialist. I want to put people first before money. Hence why we don't have that Manchester Oasis attitude, because I actually found that quite selfish, and I don't think we're really selfish as a band.
And in August '96, Dodgy's warm-hearted sound seemed to offer an alternative to all the laddishness, as they delivered the feel-good hit of the summer.
I've got a naked in my bones, I've been exposed to what I want to see.
The song is about my son, really. In life, no one's good enough, and everyone tells you you're not good enough, you're not tall enough, fat enough, smart enough, clever enough, fast enough, all these things. And I was just saying, to me, you're good enough, you know?
Nigel Clark was a genius. Their stuff stands up so well. Good enough. Just sounded great. It was fresh all the time. And great records do. You don't get tired of listening to them.
If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for me, it's good enough for two.
Good Enough was one of them records that totally defined a moment in time for the country. They're just real feel-good band, aren't they? Make you smile, and it's always summer in it in Dodgy Land. It's never raining, it's never snowing.
But even at this moment of triumph, the band stayed true to their principles, whatever the cost.
Good Enough went into the charts. We were asked to do Top of the Pops. We were asked to play Nebworth. But in classic Dodgy style, we went to Bosnia.
We're part of an arts convoy that's come to Bosnia because we believe that people have rights and their freedom is being infringed in Bosnia because of nationalism.
That was a mad experience. Guns, bombs. And when we could have been doing Top of the Pops and hopefully having a #1 the week after. We tried to use our fame in a positive way.
By now, Britpop, thrust into the mainstream by Blur and Oasis, have been transforming careers for over 2 years. And the band kept coming. 1996 would see the likes of Cooler Shaker, the Blue Tones, and Shed 7 join Dodgy and Cast in the top 10. But as the bands proliferated, a media backlash was brewing. And with Shed 7 in particular, the press were merciless.
There was a period of time where we were looked upon as being very uncool. Some music journalists wanted us gone, so they'd write pretty nasty stuff about us. I think we were easy targets to an extent because we were Northern Oiks. But then we'd release a single and loads of people would buy it and loads of people would come to see us performing it, and that's all we've ever wanted.
While the trendsetters mocked, this unfashionable band from York felt they were defying the odds.
York isn't really the kind of place that breeds famous bands, really, so we'd kind of start playing gigs in London and Manchester, in front of nobody, by the way, but I think that kind of stood us in good stead.
Early hits like Speakeasy saw these outsiders achieve the dreams that their frontman had been harbouring since childhood.
I wanted chart success probably in about 1978, to be honest with you, when I was about 6, because that's all I've ever wanted to do, is sing in a band. Proper stereotypical boy, hairbrush, mirror, swinging the hips.
Rick Witter, Shed 7's frontman, he was brilliant when I first saw him when he was young. I think he was probably just fresh out of his teens. Bit cheeky little scamp. Too skinny for his own good, too good looking for his own good. The bastard. I won't say Shed 7 are underrated. I think they're very highly regarded and very well respected and loved. But just, there should be an household name in every part of the world.
It's interesting that a band like Shed 7 play to more people now than they did then. You know, so those songs have endured.
Despite a career that delivered 15 top 40 singles, including top 10 hit Going for Gold in March 1996, Shed 7, like Dodgy, have always maintained a clear-headed perspective on their success.
When Britpop was at its height, we were kind of championship Britpop. You know, you'd have your Blur and your Oasis and your Pulps that were Premier League. But you can't compare anyone to anyone else. You've just got to be yourself, haven't you?
And in 1996, this championship Britpop band produced an eloquent retort to their critics.
We found ourselves in '96 with 5 top 30 hits throughout the year. We're the only act in the British charts to have done that, so we did break one record, which is nice.
Despite the growing backlash, Britpop business was booming. But when Oasis announced 2 record-breaking open-air concerts...
It was the biggest event I'd ever been to, far bigger than Glastonbury.
And with the music biz sinking its claws into the movement...
It was like a corporate hospitality dude, to be honest.
Was it in danger of becoming too successful for its own good?
When you've got to that point, where do you go beyond that?
In 1996, at the height of Britpop, it seemed all things British were guaranteed to succeed.
There was a sense of momentum and excitement.
That was brilliant. You just think, actually, this country right now can produce, can create, and can create world-class imagination and expression. It's Oswald Boateng, Alexander McQueen, John Galliano, Stella McCartney, Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin, the Ministry of Sound, Underworld, Trainspotting, Prince Nassim, Eurostar, etc., etc. It was just brilliant stuff. Anything could happen in Britain at that time, and that was brilliant.
The Sex Pistols came back. Madness came back. England nearly won a football tournament.
The politics, there was this new younger force coming through in New Labour under Tony Blair.
Everywhere you go today, there's a great feeling of excitement, optimism.
Feels like a perfect storm that these cultural forces all aligned.
And those cultural forces would all come to a head in August at Nebworth Park, Hertfordshire, where Oasis scheduled the biggest concerts in British history.
Getting tickets for Nebworth was like extraordinary because 5% of the population applied. It was near 2.7 million. Well, that's mad.
With Nebworth famed for vast shows by old-school rock luminaries like Led Zeppelin and Queen, Oasis had become a new version of the musical establishment that Britpop had once railed against.
The gigs were the barometer of the rise of Oasis in a lot of ways, because it was suddenly Sheffield Arena, amazing, 10,000 people. That's mad. 3 months later, 2 nights at Earl's Court, 80,000 people. That's mad. Then it was Loch Lomond, 100,000 people. Mad. And then it was Nebworth, 250,000 people. So that was the sort of barometer of the rise of the band.
Certainly leading up to Nebworth anyway, we're the biggest band in the world because we were selling the most records and playing to the most people.
I went to both shows on the Saturday and Sunday, walking along with Jarvis and with about 4 bouncers behind him, and we saw Noel walking along towards us with 4 bouncers behind him, and I saw Jarvis and Noel look at each other and then run towards each other and hug each other, and then I think Noel said to Jarvis, "This is fucking crazy, isn't it?"
Oasis was supported at Nebworth by a wealth of British talent, including Ocean Colour Scene, The Prodigy and Cast.
It was an amazing thing to be a part of. It was like beans on toast, you know. It was just like all these little heads, whatever. Oasis were amazing.
To watch Oasis come on and feel in your body the swell of that crowd roar just took your breath away. It was just the most extraordinary atmosphere.
The wave of euphoria as they delivered one after another of classics was something I'd never experienced before. It was so exciting.
I hate to say that even the critics were being carried along in the wave of enthusiasm, but we were.
I stood at the front next to Alan McGee and I turned to him and I said, "The war is won." It felt like a war on bland mainstream pop, like 5 Star and Stock Aitken and Waterman produced disco pop records.
Oasis were always astonishing as a live band, on fire. It's incredible.
The 2 gigs saw the band make a financial killing.
The ticket sales alone for Nebworth generated over £5.5 million. And then there was the merchandising. The band sold about 150,000 T-shirts.
Of Oasis and their label Creation.
It was like a corporate hospitality dude, to be honest. You know, when fucking Mick Hucknall is your guest of honour. Billy Smart's circus on steroids, really.
There were 9 different levels of wristband. I think I only had 4. And I was thinking, I wonder where this, you know, the 9th is and everything. And I walked all the way along to the inner sanctum, as it were, and saw this special roped area with 2 people with 9 wristbands on by sitting behind this rope, and it was Alan McGee and Kate Moss.
As the last notes of the Oasis set faded that August 1996 weekend, many wondered, was this the moment that Britpop peaked?
When you've got to that point, where do you go beyond that?
I've often heard people talk about Nebworth as the end of Oasis, the end of music, it's all over. It's kind of rubbish, it really is, you know. I can tell you that when you were there, it just felt like the next move. You thought there's more to come.
Nebworth was a little thing in the scheme of things. It was a big thing, a big gig and all that. There's plenty more to come, man.
Next time on The Story of Britpop.
I've smashed a few doors over it. I've screamed till the veins are coming out of here.
Big bust-ups.
I come first.
I don't think we could have made Coming Up with Bernard in the band.
With non-stop hedonism and excess.
We've got court cases, suicide, drug addiction. You couldn't make it up.
Was the end of the Britpop party in sight.
I know one thing, it's not nice being famous and skint.